There's a feeling of a lack or a loss of companionship. It happens when there's a mismatch between the quantity and quality of social interaction individuals have and want. That is the definition that a similar group of delegates agreed in 2019 when the leader of Bromley Council hosted the first Loneliness Summit. That is what we have signed up to. We've signed up to mitigating loneliness, to tackle loneliness, because we believe that in the London Borough of Bromley, in a borough as fantastic as ours, nobody should feel lonely. My name is Nahid Chowdhury. I'm the Assistant Director of Strategy, Performance and Corporate Transformation. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking to you today. I feel like I'm in a room of kindred spirits. I saw you also in 2019. There were almost 100 people in the audience in 2019. I believe there will be approximately 100 delegates here today, so apologies for some latecomers that might disrupt our flow. Some housekeeping before we really get going. I'm not expecting a fire drill, so if there is a fire, please do exit the building through the back over there. I've got some fantastic members of staff helping me out here today, so there will be some council staff to assist us. There are facilities, toilets and bathrooms to your right. It is a very, very hot day today, so feel free to take your jackets off, keep hydrated, step outside if you need to. We are filming, this is live streaming on YouTube. If you have any issues with that, please do follow up with me or any of the lovely staff sat on this right-hand side over here. I do want to thank my team. It really does take a group of people to put this together. I specifically want to thank Denise Mansell and Helena Jenkins, who really do hold the loneliness agenda together for us all. And note that I say us all and not the council. Loneliness is something that needs a partnership initiative, so I'm tremendously grateful for the delegates in the room. Just so that you know, you are all professionals that are front-facing. That is who we have invited. Primarily, you are all partners of the London Borough of Bromley, and it's tremendously helpful to come together to have these conversations. I'm apparently responsible for lost property as well. Somebody's left their mobile phone at reception, so if this is yours, one of my lovely team will hold that for you. Can I just start with some objectives, just so that we are all on the same page? What is today about? Today is about continuing the conversation that we began in 2019. Bromley Council was actually one of the first boroughs across the country to recognise loneliness as an issue that we wanted to name and tackle. 2019 feels like an awfully long time ago now, but the stigma around loneliness, the taboo around admitting or sharing with somebody that you feel lonely, was something that we took very seriously, and we were one of the first boroughs across the country to do that. I'm very proud of that, and I'm very grateful for the political leadership that we've had to really bring this agenda to the forefront. Today is about sharing some of the best practice that we know we are delivering in this borough. We have 9 local examples from across Bromley, and we have a national example from the Chief Exec of the Campaign of Ending Loneliness speaking to you today as well. Today is really about enabling you all to come together. I hope you enjoy the day, but I hope you take the opportunity to speak to each other, because every time we bring you together, some new ideas arrive and some new opportunities are born. Today is about looking at that fantastic marketplace in the committee rooms. It was heaving this morning when I came in at 9. You will have another opportunity to go back and speak to just a small sample of some of the brilliant activity taking place in this borough. We will have a break at 11:20 on it. We'll have an opportunity to go back in. And today really is also about catching up and knowing where we are in our journey. I want to bring everybody up to speed. We've been doing a lot since 2019. So hopefully by the end of this really, really packed morning, you will feel very well sighted on how we collectively are tackling loneliness in this borough. So to start the programme formally, I'm going to invite to speak to you two absolute champions of the agenda. Firstly, Councillor Diane Smith, our portfolio holder for adults, care and health. She will speak to you and formally open our summit, followed by His Worshipfulness, the Mayor of Bromley, Councillor Mike Botting, who is also our loneliness champion and has been absolutely driven forward, driving this agenda for us on our behalf. So, Councillor Diane Smith.
Thank you, Naheed, and thank you very much, Helena and Denise, who've been absolutely fantastic in putting this morning together. Good morning, everybody, and to everyone in the audience today, I'd like to offer a very warm welcome to Bromley Civic Centre and our Loneliness Summit. Whilst I already know a considerable number of you by way of introduction, for those of you that do not know me, my name is Councillor Diane Smith, and as Naheed has said, I'm the portfolio holder for adult care and health here at the London Borough of Bromley. To my mind, the fact that there are so many people and participants here, including members of the London Borough of Bromley staff, our voluntary sector, as well as faith groups, health and social care partners, charities and ward councillors, is, I think, testament to the fact that as a whole community, we are all very aware of the effect that loneliness can have on our Bromley residents. Bromley Council is, I believe, a systems leader in the vanguard of the loneliness agenda. Back in 2019, we recognised the impact that loneliness could have on individuals within our community, and in response, we hosted a loneliness summit to start the conversation. This had the aim of both raising awareness whilst also reducing the stigma associated with the subject of loneliness within Bromley Borough. In 2022, following on from the initial commitment to develop a robust and deliverable action plan to tackle loneliness within our community, Bromley Council led on the co-production of an all-age tackling loneliness strategy and thus developed a multi-agency action plan reflecting the government's national strategy, A Connected Society. There is no doubt that the arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic served to accelerate loneliness and isolation within our community, with the impact being felt more acutely by many of us, particularly as we were unable to continue to take part in our usual activities and maintain our social networks. However, even as life returned to normal after the pandemic, and as all restrictions on our social and work lives were gradually removed, loneliness remained and still remains with us within our Bromley community. Government research shows that the number of people stating that they often or always feel lonely has not fallen to pre-pandemic levels and remains steadily higher. All this despite the fact that people can, if they wish, be more connected now than ever through phones, social media, Zoom and such like. Loneliness, as we all recognise, is something that can affect people of all ages and in addition can affect people at key trigger points during their lives. If we consider our own circumstances and those of family and friends, we can recognise the time when it's touched our own lives and affected both physical and emotional well-being. From my own personal perspective, I'm acutely aware of the impact that bereavement, for example, has had on older members of my own very close family and friends. In addition to the trauma and all the associated emotions of bereavement, the advent perhaps of deteriorating health for they themselves, plus the reality of considering the impact of living alone for the first time for a number of years, loneliness can become a fierce reality for many of our older residents. In addition, I would like to say again from my own observations that I have made that following bereavement, there seems to be a noticeable lack of confidence for some people in that they struggle to continue with existing relationships and maintain social interaction and connections which they had previously, which, as we all know, are the key to contributing to a person's health and well-being. That said, there is no doubt, I think, we would all agree that loneliness amongst all our residents across the board is an issue, which has been compounded by the fact that for nigh on 2 years, people were unable to see family, friends, neighbours, work colleagues, etc. and that therefore it is key and important that having kick-start the initiative locally to minimise and combat loneliness in our community, that we continue to ensure that Bromley is a place where we really recognise that both we and those around us may be affected by loneliness at various points in our lives. We at Bromley Council, with our partners, want people to feel that they are always able to have conversations about loneliness and aim to enhance ways that they may reconnect with neighbours and communities, pointing them towards support and also in the direction of the many groups and activities that flourish within the borough. Bromley Council continues with partners to have the conversation about loneliness, raising awareness throughout our whole community, through formal training, as well as through social media and any other mediums that we have within our means. Today we are celebrating what Bromley Council and our partners have achieved since our first summit and consider where the next year and beyond should take us. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening.
Deputy Mayor, Leader, fellow councillors, distinguished guests, welcome. In May 2022, I was appointed as the Member Loneliness Champion, taking over from my predecessor, Councillor Aisha Cuthbert, who many of you may remember from the 2019 event. My role as Loneliness Champion for the elected members allows me to promote the loneliness strategy to fellow councillors so that they can help support residents living in their wards who may be experiencing loneliness and social isolation. I am proud of how Bromley has responded to the challenge of tackling loneliness and social isolation with a strategy in place that aims to reach every corner. That sounds like a fine for the Mayor's charity. Strategy in place that aims to reach every corner of the borough. Loneliness can be complex and can affect anyone at any stage of their life and without warning. So it is important that our strategy has the potential and scope to reach anyone and everyone. I've witnessed this myself firsthand, have seen how a community can assist those in need of support and friendship through conversation, activities and opportunities to come together. I've had the pleasure to support and provide guidance on the implementation of the Tackling Loneliness strategy across Bromley, which has already seen many successes when trying to tackle the stigma of loneliness and make a positive impact to residents. I've been able to connect our principal loneliness champion with individuals and organisations throughout Bromley so that we can work together to raise awareness and tackle loneliness, and will continue to do so. The Tackling Loneliness initiative is very important to me, and I will be continuing my role as Member Loneliness Champion throughout my term as Mayor of Bromley. This is something which I am deeply passionate about. I am also the Members Armed Forces Champion, and as such intend to support all parts of our community involved, including veterans of all ages living within Bromley experiencing loneliness. How do we do that? By building on the excellent work started by Helena, Denise and the team in her role of developing the loneliness strategy, increasing awareness of what is available to assist and providing signposting to services. As Mayor of Bromley, I look forward to celebrating future successes as the Tackling Loneliness strategy continues to bring together residents, community groups and voluntary organisations, which I think this morning is a testament to that. So thank you all for being here. It is wonderful to see so many partners and organisations here today, sharing success stories and learnings to enable us all to be more effective in tackling loneliness, both in the borough and beyond. Thank you all for attending this morning, and I hope you will take away from today reassurance, confidence and understanding that a little effort can make a very big difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Portfolio Holder. That's me. Next slide, please. The Mayor and the portfolio holder have already touched on some of these things, but a bit of a potted history for those of you that are new to our borough. Our first summit was in 2019. It was tremendously successful in terms of starting that conversation and really making this a priority for all of us. What we did at the end of that summit is try to bed in the issue of loneliness, much like we talk about safeguarding as being everybody's business. We wanted to make tackling loneliness everybody's business. And from a council leadership position, we drafted 2 multi-agency strategies, one in regards to ageing well in the borough, and another around children and families who live in the borough. And we made loneliness a top priority within those strategies. So we really just wanted to bed loneliness in as a business as usual approach. Little did we know that the pandemic was around the corner and life would really change for all of us. But we did not down tools during the pandemic in 2020. In fact, if anything, we really galvanised the community in the fantastic way that we know you step forward. So we ran a volunteering participation programme, and because so many of the community were furloughed at the time, we had over 4,000 volunteers befriending those that were shielding, those that were most vulnerable, supporting them during the pandemic with prescription collections and food drop-offs and so on and so forth. And I have to say I'm really proud of the way that the voluntary sector continued to function during that year and ensured that some of their activities moved online and were still accessible to allow people to communicate and for people to feel supported. In 2021, we reflected again about where do we take the loneliness agenda. And the Mayor has mentioned Councillor Aisha Cuthbert, our first member champion. She and I ran 4 workshops during the summer of 2021. We spoke to over 200 delegates during those workshops, really to ask, where do you want to go next with this? Life has changed post-pandemic. Society and the way that we behave has changed. And those workshops were so helpful, so informative. People were very honest with us about what they wanted to do with the agenda. And some of the discussions led to drafting of a strategy in 2022. I don't often, for those officers in the room that know me, I don't often say I'm proud of something, but I am actually really proud of the loneliness strategy. And the reason for that is it is truly multi-agency. And for those of you that are interested, it's reported on, the action plan of it is reported on quarterly to our Adult Scrutiny Committee. And it's not a stagnant document. Every quarter we think again about what more can we do, how can this be more impactful, how can it be more purposeful. So every quarter we are challenging ourselves and each other to make it as impactful as possible. And one of the most grateful things that Denise and I were of the 2022 launch was the funding of a 4-year post in the shape of Helena Jenkins, our Principal Loneliness Officer, who will be speaking to you later on about the great work that she's been doing since September 2022. One of the things that we agreed whilst we were working through the strategy is that loneliness is really an all-age, all-people issue. But there are certain trigger points in our lives that might lead us to feel more lonely. And those trigger points you will recognise, and perhaps you would have experienced some of those trigger points in your own life. I know I certainly have. Next slide, please. Thank you. We identified 3 priorities for our strategy: organisation and services, community infrastructure that empowers social connections, and building a culture that encourages strong social relationships. On reflection, that's perhaps a little bit too much policy speak for what we know is quite a simple issue. We need to work more effectively together and continue to talk and think about loneliness and think about residents and making sure that people feel part of our community. Next slide, please. In terms of organisation and services, we've been very busy. We've been busy talking to and creating a network. We've engaged really effectively with health practitioners obviously being key to being frontline practitioners that perhaps meet and see people that are lonely. One of the things that we recognised during our workshop, and that was spoken about quite often, is that our frontline workers don't necessarily feel confident to speak to somebody that they suspect is lonely. So what we've done is established a training program. We've trained over 100 frontline workers to identify the signs of loneliness and then to feel confident to have a conversation without feeling that you might offend somebody, without feeling that you might make them feel uncomfortable, and then know where to signpost our residents. And one of the most important things that came from that priority is that we've rallied behind an online database called Simply Connect Bromley, because one of the other things that was discussed during our workshops is, Nahid, actually the borough's full of lots of rich activity. There is a vast community network doing lots of really interesting things, but there's not necessarily a single point of information, advice and guidance for us. How do we know? How do we share what's going on in our fantastic borough? So we've rallied behind Simply Connect Bromley. Clearly, digital exclusion is something that we worry about, so we have continued to print directories as well in adult social care and in children's services to make sure that information is available in a range of ways. But Simply Connect Bromley, if you haven't seen it in the marketplace, there's a projector up and there's a website, so I do implore you to have a look. Next slide, please. In terms of community infrastructure, one of the key things that was discussed was, Nate, look, we'd like to do a little bit more, but having places to meet, facilities, rooms, venues can be quite prohibitive at times. So actually there's quite a lot of capacity in our borough to just meet freely, to use a room, or very inexpensively to hire a space. We've created a directory, a simple way of being able to know where these venues are so that community groups can meet. We were also spoken to about transport. For some of our residents, it can be very challenging getting across what is geographically a very large borough, the largest borough in London. So we've developed an accessible transport guide just to give people some guidance about how they can get and enjoy some of the opportunities that are available to us. In terms of culture, we've really supported befriending services. We know that that's really important. We've tried to do a lot in terms of campaigns, media and social campaigns. I do hope that you've been following our tweets and looking at press releases and seeing the posters around town. That's really important in terms of just keeping the conversation going. And we've been working nationally as well to learn from others and to share our best practice. And as I say, I'm delighted that the Chief Executive of the Campaign to End Loneliness will be addressing us later on today. We had also invited the Minister of Loneliness, the Right Honourable Stuart Andrews MP of the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. But given that it is National Loneliness Week, you can imagine he's very busy this week. But what he has done for us is kindly record a video for Bromley. It's 3 minutes. I'm really delighted with it, and I'd like you to take some time with me and just watch this video. But I'm also really glad to invite and appreciate Ravneet Verdi's participation in our event today. She's the head of Tackling Loneliness at the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. And Ravneet, you're most welcome to Bromley, and I'm really glad that you're here to speak to us today as well. So can we play the video, please?
Hello, and thank you for inviting me to mark Loneliness Awareness Week with you. I want to start by congratulating you on the success of your all-age Tackling Loneliness strategy for Bromley. We know that loneliness can affect people of all ages and backgrounds, with major impacts on health and well-being. Therefore, I am so pleased that you have implemented a borough-wide life course strategy to address this issue. 5 years ago, we published the first ever cross-government strategy to tackle loneliness. And since then, the government and its partners have invested almost £80 million to deliver this. The government's work to tackle loneliness focuses on reducing the stigma around loneliness, supporting organisations across society to take action, and improving the evidence base. My department, DCMS, is leading on the cross-government strategy to tackle loneliness, and we are working in partnership across government departments to improve social connectedness. As well as the government taking action, individuals and organisations have a part to play towards building a more connected society, where people can have positive relationships that help them to thrive. That is why events like this one are so important, to bring people together, to share learning from the activities being delivered in Bromley's libraries, leisure centres and schools. Tackling loneliness remains a priority for the government, and we will continue to take a truly cross-sector approach. We will work with local authorities, health bodies, businesses and the voluntary sector to connect marginalised groups and those at risk of loneliness to support. Thank you again for inviting me to celebrate Loneliness Awareness Week with you, and for all the vital work you do to help reduce loneliness and foster connection for the residents of Bromley all year round.
That was fun. It was fun for me to have that. I'm very pleased with that. A little bit of audience participation. This could be tantamount to chaos, or it could be quite fun. The council's quite interested in the digital agenda, so we thought we'd play a little bit with you and just get some audience participation. If you have a smartphone, do get it out of your bags and handbags. I'm going to hand you over to our Principal Loneliness Champion, who will work you through some activity with us.
Good morning, everybody. This is the time where you might need your agenda, or please get your phone out, open your camera, and scan this lovely QR code, which will take us to our first question, which looks at answering which age group has reported experiencing loneliness the most from November 2022 to February 2023. If that's too far away, please use the QR code on your agenda. This is the first one, which is marked at 10:35. So please select your answer. You can only select one. We're going to look at the results now. Fabulous. So we've got a few more coming in. This is live. So anybody that's inputting their answer now, you will see these polls continually change. So here, really interesting, 16 to 29 years so far is the highest number for those that are experiencing loneliness. Again, 9% for 30 to 49 years. That's now growing. 50 to 69 years, and then 70 plus. So just to give you a little bit of information, it's great that you are participating in this, but actually we know that the current results for the age group which is experiencing loneliness the most is 16 to 29 years. That age group have reported experiencing loneliness the most. This information comes from the Campaign to End Loneliness's website with statistics from the ONS. With this particular age group experiencing loneliness almost over double than those who are 65 currently and over. The second group, which have reported experiencing loneliness most, is actually the lowest group here, 30 to 49 years. This is the next age group which say that they are experiencing loneliness the most, and I'm happy to report on that. Thank you very much. Thank you all for participating in that. I look forward to doing this again a few more times later during today. So I was appointed Principal Loneliness Champion of September 2022. And for the last 9 months, I've been helping to implement the Tackling Loneliness strategy alongside our fantastic partners and yourselves that are in the room, and in various creative, moving and very impactful ways across the community. I'm a Bromley resident, and for me this is a very important role, but also a really personal one as well. I'm helping to shape community as I would like to see it as a resident myself. So first of all, I'd like to talk around the Tackling Loneliness workshop and a few various other things within this. So you can see some fantastic pictures here on screen. But regarding the Tackling Loneliness workshop, you all have a flyer in your delegate packs telling you lots of information around this. As Nahid has already addressed you, this is a bespoke Bromley workshop for professionals, volunteers and those working with organisations who are supporting residents of all ages who maybe experience loneliness and social isolation. This has been a really impactful course. Information which we're sharing around those or who might be impacted around loneliness, how we might be able to support them, starting a conversation, as well as all the different resources which may be available to them within the borough. This is a free 1.5 hour workshop, one which I'm dedicating my time to as Principal Loneliness Champion, with 2 sessions a week, every week, for the rest of this year and going forward through my role. We've had, as Nahid said, only over 100 participants on this course already, and out of those participants, 95% of people who've taken the Tackling Loneliness survey has said that they found this information not only useful, but extremely useful. Some of the feedback that we've had from attendees is that they really enjoyed the course and they enjoyed the opportunity to discuss experiences to help understand issues that the community might face. Another delegate also stated that they said, "Thank you for presenting helpful information, ideas and data in a very relaxed way, which encouraged participation and discussion." This is a free course. I would encourage every single person in this room, your colleagues and your organisations, to book yourself on via our Eventbrite page. However, this course is very flexible. You might want this to be face-to-face with your whole entire team. That can be arranged. You all have my email address from the invites that I sent out, so please do get in contact with me or find me today. I'd also like to discuss some of the successes of our Tackling Loneliness Action Group. Our Tackling Loneliness Action Group is made up of organisations and partners who are in this room, which we come together to help implement our Tackling Loneliness strategy. We've had many successes, and some of them will include the Platinum Jubilee and the coronation. We were named a platinum borough by the Eden Project, who manages that. We have 3 big lunches coming up this weekend and next. These are for the community and residents. If you can make them, that'd be fantastic. This couldn't be possible unless we work with our Friends of Parks, ID Verdi, Bromley Libraries, Rotarians, London Borough Bromley organisations, Good Gym, and the Bromley Children's Project. We've already had 2 big lunches internally. We believe in this value, and this is something that we live here within this organisation. We've had over 80 staff members this week come together to share their lunch and their homemade goods, to connect with others which we might only see virtually. Our action group has seen many connections being made internally within it. My Time Active are currently working with our Children Looked After to see how they can work together to connect with families and children within this area. We've also been helping to promote our Warm Wednesday, which comes from our borough partner, the London South East Colleges. They have opened their BR6 restaurant on the Orpington campus twice through 2 pilots. We have helped promote this across social media platforms, in-person events, and our partners within our action group have actually gone there to promote their services. For instance, My Time Active have actually seen many people go from the BR6 restaurant or Wednesday events to then go on to dementia golf, which is fantastic. Our Bromley Children's Project are committed to supporting children and families to talking about loneliness in a really engaging, fun and creative ways. I've been able to support them in 4 different dedicated sessions, speaking with carers, guardians and promoting local services, including Simply Connect Bromley and other organisations close to our 6 children and family centres across the borough. They are also hosting 6 big lunches across all centres as a teddy bear picnic form. Talking about loneliness is really important, and that starts from a young age. I'd like to go to my next slide, please. Talking about loneliness is something that I don't just do locally, but also globally. The Campaign to End Loneliness is an organisation that I've been working with closely, and this year they had their international conference in February 2023. They had people from all across the world attend, and part of their conference was having an international poster competition. This is something that the London Borough of Bromley had submitted, and you've seen the slides this morning from Nahid's presentation. We did not win, but we did come runner-up, and we were exhibited within their exhibition area. I'm very pleased to tell you that we were the only local authority within the UK to actually have a poster within that area. That shows the level of dedication that we are prepared to go to talk about loneliness and how much it means to us. The Tackling Loneliness Hub is also an area for professionals, policymakers and organisations who want to communicate about loneliness in a virtual way. This is a fantastic organisation, platform, which is managed by What Works Wellbeing and the Campaign to End Loneliness, and is run by the DCMS. I'm a very frequent user, and I've now been named an ambassador for the Tackling Loneliness Hub. I've been able to share information to others to support them, to support other councils and organisations through their initiatives of talking about loneliness, being able to share our best practice, not just within the UK, but also within Australia. They have a networking function which allows you to meet somebody new within the Tackling Loneliness Hub every single month. This is a great platform. It's free to use. I would suggest anybody who's interested in making changes within their organisations and supporting residents to perhaps go onto this platform and become a member. Next slide, please. A lovely photo of me here outside the Westminster Palace. That was taken last month. And that's because I went to the Tackling Loneliness and Connected Communities all-party parliamentary group. This was the first one that they've had face-to-face. And as you can see here, Stuart Andrews, MP, Minister for Loneliness, is also on the panel with the First Minister of Loneliness, where the subject that I attended was around youth loneliness. How the DCMS is going to support people within their strategy, especially young people, with some really emotive and passionate stories with young people sharing their lived experience of loneliness so far. This is also supported by the British Red Cross. It was a real privilege to be here, to see various different organisations and what they are doing to support those. For instance, the Reading Agency and the Joe Cox Foundation were also in attendance. I've been able to support the DCMS in their workings around tackling loneliness by providing them information around the Tackling Loneliness Hub, and why I personally think it's a great platform to connect different organisations of people across the UK who want to make a real difference in terms of local government, all the way down to volunteers and organisers. I've been able to share experience, best practice and many different forms of evidence with the Campaign to End Loneliness to help shape the evidence base of what people are actually doing to help mitigate loneliness across the country. This is something which I continue and hope to do across the next 4 years, and that we will have a primitive role within the AOPG as well. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Helena. You really have injected such a lot of energy into this agenda ever since you've arrived, so we are tremendously grateful for all of your efforts. Do you know, 75 of you got your phone out and participated in that thing. Well done. Well done. Thank you for humouring me. I'm really pleased. I promised you 9 speakers and 9 you will get, and actually we're running to time, so we're doing all right. The next 3 speakers are from leisure, culture, sport, all based in the London Borough of Bromley, and all using their facilities to engage with lots of different types of residents. So I'm tremendously pleased to be welcoming Deborah from My Time Active, Matt from Bromley Football Club, and Mark from Good Gym to speak to you, to just share some examples of how their organisations are tackling loneliness. So I ask you to give them a warm welcome. Deborah from My Time Active.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Yes, I'm Deborah from My Time Active. I'm the Partnerships Manager there. What I'd like to do is just very briefly give you an overview of who My Time Active are, for those of you who are not aware of who we are. As you can see on the slide, our mission is to improve the well-being of people in our communities. So, what does that actually mean? Who are we and how are we going to achieve that mission? We can move on to the slide. We're a social enterprise aiming to improve well-being regardless of what stage of life you are. And we aim to do this through a range of pathways. Pathways to wellbeing which include being active, being positive and being together. So, what does it mean to be a social enterprise? Well, it means we don't have shareholders who invest in the business, and we don't have shareholders who take any profit we generate. We have a board of volunteer trustees, and we have charitable objectives. Our main source of income is from our customers who pay for the activities they take part in, and if we are fortunate enough to generate any surplus, that surplus is ploughed back into the facilities and services we operate. Anyone who's attended the loneliness awareness course that Helena has run, and from what we've seen already today, we know that loneliness can affect us at any stage in life. And we know at My Time Active that many of the services we run do support people to overcome their feelings of loneliness and isolation. Whether that's the parent and the baby taking part in swimming lessons, the young people engaging in our arts training programme, which is a creative music programme, or young adults or adults taking part in, who've got special educational needs, engaging and taking part in our weekly Mind Club activities. We know that many of our support services support the people to overcome their feelings of loneliness and isolation. All of these programmes I've mentioned and many more can help combat loneliness through engaging people in activity, through staff who are positive and motivating, and through people engaging with other people. And that's an important point. Very importantly, with other people who they relate to. Move to the next slide, please. Thought it would be just useful to reference some of the facilities we operate out of. The majority of these we manage and operate, but you can see we do hire some community venues for our services, and those community venues are in areas of the borough where we feel there's a gap in provision, a gap of leisure provision. We can move to the next slide, please. As I mentioned, many of our programmes help to combat loneliness. However, today I've been asked to focus on how we address loneliness for older people. And we know many older people are isolated and lonely, and the pandemic has obviously compounded this issue. So for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to focus on Prime Time, our programme of activities for older people, and Active Lifestyles, our programmes for people who are living with a health condition. I'll warn you, I've used quite a few quotes from participants in this presentation, and I actually make no apology for that. We can and do collect, sort, measure, analyse data to evidence impact. But I do believe more often than not, outcomes of programmes are best described by the participants themselves. So, let's talk about Prime Time. Just want to pick up on a couple of points from this slide. It is our programme for older people, but it is open to all. So, you don't have to be 60 or over to take part, but if you are 60 or over, you will get a reduced fee for the activity you take part in, and you will have the opportunity to have a reduced price membership. We offer over 90 weekly sessions, and you can see a range of the activities I've listed there, from dance to gym to aqua, Pilates, strength and stability, seated classes, parasize, Zumba Girls, the list goes on. Touched on it, we do have payment options. People can pay as they attend a session, or you can buy a monthly membership. And for that monthly membership fee, you can take part in as many activities as you want to. And indeed, we do have Prime Time members who travel the borough with their membership. They go from Walnuts in the morning to the spa in the afternoon to take part in activities. Or they might be at the Pavilion on a Tuesday and West Wickham on a Thursday. So they do travel around to use the various programmes and activities at the facilities I mentioned earlier. We've got a dedicated team of prime time staff, and we've got a dedicated team of volunteers. These are crucial to the success of the programme. Our prime time manager and our prime time coordinator are both knowledgeable, passionate and experienced, and they're there at facilities, at site, to listen to and respond to the needs of older people. And this is really important. It's a really crucial part of the programme. The prime time team are then supported by this amazing team of volunteers. Our prime time buddies are an amazing group of people. We've got 25 of them who travel around our facilities and support our programme. They're role models. They're taking part in physical activity themselves, but they give their time to meet and greet people, to talk to our members, to talk to our customers, and more importantly, talk to new people. We've got examples of prime time buddies who out on the streets or at the bus stop and engaging with people, talking about prime time and the benefits of physical activity. And linked to all of that, we've got an amazing group of prime time instructors, all of whom want to work with older people. Move on to the next slide. So what do we know? We know from surveys we've done that there are 3 key motivations to people taking part in prime time. Increase fitness, improve health, and very importantly for this age group, to meet people. And it's really important that we as an organisation know and understand that, because it means then we know we have to set up activities in facilities, in environments that are conducive to people connecting, talking to each other and making friends. If you've ever been into any of our facilities on a prime time, at a prime time session, or when prime time is timetabled, you will spot immediately our prime time customers. They gather before sessions in cafes, outside of dance studios, in open spaces where they congregate round our buddies, our instructors and our prime time staff. And there's always a hive of chatter and activity going on before and after sessions. So that time to connect is really crucial. What else do we know? Well, we know from data we've collected from those surveys that prime time supports people to improve their health, to improve their well-being, to increase and maintain physical activity levels, and very importantly, to increase and maintain social connections. So that's what the data is telling us. And those social connections made are really important for this agenda today. We asked people, since taking part in prime time, what changes have you made? What changes do you feel? No surprise, the most common response was people had increased their activity levels. But on this slide, I've just highlighted in the blue boxes where people commented on improving health. Very importantly, in the yellow boxes, how the programme has supported people to make connections, how the programme supports people to make friends and to talk to people. We do run social events. Again, very important for this agenda today. The social events allow people to connect, to make friends. We're just recovering from an indoor street party, and we were pleased to have the Mayor in attendance. That street party was in conjunction with Bromley Community Dementia Steering Group, and we had over 30 people at Crofton Halls for tea and entertainment. Once we recover from that party, we will be organising more events, I can assure you. If we can now move on to Our health programmes, our active lifestyles health programmes, as I said, these are for people who have been diagnosed and are living with a health condition. They're not specifically for older people, but by the very nature they're accommodating people who've got health conditions. We do get a lot of older people in these programmes. The Fresh Start and Heart Smart programmes that I mentioned up there, we get over 1,000 referrals every year into those programmes. GPs can refer directly from their EMIS system. Our referral form's on there, so it's very easy for them to refer to their patients to us. We've got over 30 sessions a week, range of sessions as you can see. And again, we've got a dedicated staff team, crucial again to the programme and crucial for the atmosphere and the ambience we set within those programmes. Our active lifestyles manager is very experienced and knowledgeable, and she's got a team of exercise specialists who have been trained and are qualified in exercise on referral, and many of them have got the next level, level 4 British Association for Cardiac Rehab training. Again, they're supported by that wider team of instructors. And the specialists all enjoy supporting people with health conditions. It's not for every instructor, but all the specialists we have said, yes, this is a group of people we'd like to work with, and they ensure that all the programmes are safe and effective for whatever health condition people are presenting with. We do provide ongoing programmes. The Fresh Start Friendly logo there represents those ongoing programmes. So once you've completed your 12 sessions on Heart Smart or on Fresh Start, or you've completed your Escape Pain programme, you can join Fresh Start Friendly. A lot of people in those sessions have obviously got a lot of different medical conditions, but they still feel supported by that team of exercise specialists to exercise in a safe environment, which is effective. What do we know? Well, we know the statistics tell us that living with a long-term health condition can be isolating and lonely. So what do we know about active lifestyles? Well, we know the programmes, we know people take part because the programmes reduce the impact of health conditions on their life, allows people to gain their confidence, provides them with valuable advice and knowledge on how to manage their health condition, allows people to continue achieving their health-related goals, and really importantly, to gain peer support from those living with similar health conditions. And obviously, it enables them to achieve the Chief Medical Officer guidelines around physical activity. Just want to leave you today with a couple of quotes. This first one is from a gentleman who takes part in our wellbeing walks, free walks out in the community. And he says, in my opinion, group walking is invaluable. Mostly in our 70s and 80s, several of us are now single and live alone. Speaking personally, I'm reluctant to walk far by myself. I feel safe and so much happier with company. It can help to reduce stress and combat loneliness, particularly for someone recently bereaved, and often encourages people to take part, to take an interest in joining other activities. And the second quote is from one of our Fresh Start Friendly participants, and she says, I don't feel lonely, but can sometimes feel alone. But I try to keep myself occupied, learning and doing new things. I appreciate company, and this is where I'm fortunate in having time with everyone in my classes at the spa, where I can also help and support others in the sessions. That was a whistle-stop introduction to My Time Active and some of the programmes we run. If you've got any questions or want any more information, I'm around for the morning, and I know my colleagues Anne and Diane are in the marketplace. Come and find us and we'll give you whatever information you need. Thank you.
Deborah, thank you so much for that. Despite my reputation amongst officers, I am actually a big softie in those last two quotes. I've had to take a deep breath in because they are really poignant, and it's exactly why we're all in the room today. Can I now ask you to give a warm welcome to Matt from the Bromley Football Club, please? Speak to us.
Well, good morning, everyone. You've got two for the price of one today. My name is Matt Hall, and I'm the Head of Community at Bromley Football Club. And on my right here is Andrea Ellis, Women and Girls Development Officer, and we'll talk a bit more about her role in a minute. Now, on the face of it, many people look at us as what we primarily are, a football club that plays on a Tuesday and plays on a Saturday, so hopefully win some trophies, and we have done that a bit over the past couple of years. I'm sure some of you will be very well aware of that as well. But myself and Andrea join you from the Community Sports Trust side of the football club. And since February 2021, we've been a separate charitable arm of the football club. We have our own bank account, we are a registered charity, and we are responsible for running the many community provisions that we have on offer. And actually, when you look into it, we are a lot deeper than just a football team that plays on a Saturday, and we have a much wider impact than a lot of people would realise. Next slide, please.
Hi, thank you. Right, so as Matt was saying, we were established 2 years ago, and our mission statement is to provide opportunities through sport, improving the physical and mental well-being of community. And we've really found that sport is an amazing vehicle to make that impact. Predominantly, we started off with our provisions looking at helping support children, and we work with a lot of schools. We've just got some data here where at the moment we're working with 7 primary schools within the borough, and that includes providing after school, lunchtime provision, support in staffing and helping them with CPD as well. And we also run the extracurricular clubs as well, so getting those children to be active at a young age. We have around 500 children that we see throughout the week in those clubs as well. And also, we are supporting people to get back to work and be coaches by offering, we have a pool of around 30 coaches that come and help us deliver that. So in total, we have over 40 hours a week of community provision that we provide. And I think a really amazing figure there is that we have over 1,000 people that engage from all sorts of ages with the football club. Our youngest participant at the moment is 2.5, and our oldest participant is over 90. So a real big spectrum of the population within Bromley. Next slide, please.
2.5 is about to become 1.5. Some of you might have seen our mini Ravens provision, which is launching next month if you visited us in the other room just next door. So we're very, very excited for that. And as a lot of you in this room will know, partnerships are really key in this area of work, and we are delighted to be partnered with a number of local schools, and we're very, very excited to be expanding that come September. We work very closely with the Bromley Children and Families Forum, who are an amazing organisation, and we've been really able to support children who really need it, children on free school meals, children with SEN, and really further our work and our impact in the community with those children, and not just the children, their families as well. We've been privileged to work with the Mayor of London and the Mayor of London's Fund over the years as well, and we're currently running some projects with London Sport and London Youth, which again are addressing disadvantaged people and those who really need the support the most. We, of course, work closely with the London Borough of Bromley, and we've been very fortunate to work with Helena as well over the past few weeks, and we look forward to extending that relationship. And another organisation who are in this room, the Rotary Club, have been really, really supportive in one of our key loneliness initiatives, which we'll be coming on to in a minute. Next slide, please.
Okay, so just talking about football, we've got 18 football sessions held each week just at our stadium alone, which is on Hayes Lane. For those that don't know, it's slightly tucked away, but we hold sessions to a range of different people, from mixed football to girls only football. We also have pan disability football that's mixed, and we've just introduced girls only football as well, because we find for girls that can be a barrier if they have to play with boys and that's the only choice. And we also have walking football. Again, we've just got men's football, and last night we launched our women's only football with our oldest participant in their 60s. And just from a personal perspective, someone came up to me last night after the session and said, "I've waited all my life for this." She said she'd always loved football and she cried when the Lionesses won last year. So you can really see, I mean, that just puts you on a complete high, how much impact football can have. But we don't just do football, as Matt said, as well. We also do things like gymnastics, we've been running yoga, we've been introducing other things as we go along, and Matt's going to talk a little bit more about how we've been tackling other groups as well that might not want to be engaged necessarily in football.
Tackling loneliness on the pitch. Now, one of Andrea's key projects and initiatives that she launched back in 2018, actually, which I'll allow her to step in and talk about in a minute, is Bromley Bells, which has been revolutionary for women in and around the area of Bromley, and enabling them to have opportunities to improve their physical health, but their mental well-being as well, and being part of a group and having an identity. We run a range of projects for children and adults, as we've spoken about, and a couple of the ones that we've launched recently have really targeted groups that we've not necessarily worked with before, as in over 50s and above that as well. We're delighted to have both women and men's recreational football schemes offered at the moment, as well as walking football, which has been particularly popular with those recovering from health conditions, and actually as a result of the pandemic as well. COVID really highlighted to us just how loneliness and isolation can affect our community, and we've really strived to be a key player in the Borough of Bromley to improve that since the pandemic hit. Another one we'd just like to touch on quickly is Man v Fat. Now, you look at the title of that, look at the title of some of the team names as well, it's quite amusing. The group are fantastic, they're a real community in themselves, but it's not just about improving that physical health as the title would suggest. This has not only improved their health and helped them lose weight, but it's helped them have an identity, become part of a community, and give them a reason to get up in the morning and come to Bromley Football Club and be part of that really close-knit group.
Yeah, as Matt was just talking about, just going back to Bromley Bells, I established that in 2018. I approached Bromley Football Club. I used to go to their matches, but that was it, and I literally approached them and said I'd like to set up recreational football for women over 30 who hadn't had an opportunity previously to take part in football. They weren't going to be able to play for a club, so recreational football was the answer. And that started over 5 years ago as a volunteer, and I've worked with the club. The club have been fantastic and supported me in the provision. We had 12 women turn up at the first session. We now have nearly 100 members. It's so popular that we've opened up to over 18s. We've done absolutely everything. We've been to tournaments in France in what was named the Old Girls World Cup. The FA actually said you have to rephrase it. And that was an amazing opportunity because as women who are sort of 40 plus, we hadn't had the opportunity to play not in competitive games, but in matches, and that was an amazing thing for people. It's really helped with their mental and physical well-being. So loads and loads of opportunities there. We've opened up to 18 plus now, but we do lots of fundraising activities. It's the sense of belonging that it gives you, and we hope to do that now as well with our new walking football provision. So it's more than just actually kicking a ball. As Matt said, we also do things off the pitch as well, and two of our most favourite projects are Ravens Chat. Now, Ravens Chat is open to everyone, regardless of whether or not you support Bromley. It's held at our amazing facilities. If anyone's been down to Bromley recently, it's unrecognisable from what it was a couple of years ago. There's an amazing bar and kitchen called Broomfields, and that's where we host a lot of these community activities. Ravens Chat is for those people who might be socially isolated or lonely, and it gives them an opportunity to come in and meet new people. They might walk through the door and not know anyone, but by the end of it they've swapped phone numbers or they've made arrangements to go out and socialise. So we're really proud of that project there, and actually how that's grown now. Some of the older members of the fan base, they have become more and more involved with the club That gentleman there, David, who Matt has got in the picture, he's a season ticket holder, but he's also a Ravens Chat member, but now he's taken that one step further. He's volunteered, they've become trained in mental first aid, so you can see how it just builds and develops, and is a really good example of how we can make a substantial difference to people's lives. Sporting Memories as well is a dementia-friendly workshop that we run every 2 weeks again. David and his friends have taken the lead on that with support from us. So we've set it up, they've become trained, and now they go and deliver that to other people. So you can see it really makes a good impact, and it is a really important part of our ethos.
Just touching on what Andrea's covered there, you can all see the quotes on the screen, but for us, there was a particular moment where the whole loneliness angle really became important for myself and the team at the Community Trust. During COVID, we had a particular gentleman who had been supporting the club for 60, 70 years. He's been in the film The Bromley Boys. He was the reason the Bromley Boys book was written as well. Unfortunately, his wife had passed away and his sons had moved away and weren't readily accessible to him. And he really, really struggled through that pandemic. And it got me thinking, as a football club, I mentioned at the start of this presentation, we're seen as a bunch of 11 players that goes out on the pitch on a Saturday afternoon for a couple of hours, and that's that. The truth is, now we're in the off-season, there are no football matches. During the week, what opportunities are there for us to help these people? We know there wasn't only one of them, we know there was a whole group of them. We have a very big section of our season ticket base who are over the age of 50, and we found that a lot of those people were really struggling. And that gentleman was an inspiration for us to launch these groups and actually to have a structured mechanism for them to come along and improve their mental well-being every single week, not just on a Saturday afternoon, not just if the team won, and if they'd lost, maybe not, but something for them every week, and a group that welcomes individuals from all kinds of backgrounds. And I think you can see some of the quotes on there, and the one that really stands out for me is kind of in the middle of the page, the shortest quote on there. "This has saved my life, and many others, I've no doubt." And that gentleman who said that was actually suffering from cancer at the time. And being part of our group, being part of our Ravens Chat group, dramatically helped improve his spirits. And I'm pleased to say that he then went on further down the line to recover from that cancer. And that gentleman, as Andreas mentioned, is now wanting to give back to the community. And that's something that we've really observed when we started these projects, is actually the people who benefit from them then want to give back and improve lives across the Borough of Bromley. Thank you all so much for listening.
Thank you, Matt and Andrea. And Andrea, my apologies for not welcoming you specifically on the stage, but really happy to hear about the work that you're doing with women and girls. And I think that was a really lovely example of what I mentioned early on, which is loneliness should become everybody's business. Loneliness should just be responded to through the activities of all of our organisations without it being a bespoke thing of itself. It can just be bedded in. So one more speaker before our break. Can I ask you to give a warm welcome to Matt from Good Gym?
Hello everybody, I'm Mark, I'm from Good Gym. We're a community of runners who get fit by doing good. We're basically a charity, we're based across England and Wales. Next slide please. We work in 59 boroughs and cities. I think it's actually 61 now, as of the last couple of weeks. And we work with charities, local community organisations, projects, NHS groups, doing lots of different things. So I guess we see that there's a lot of energy that's kind of wasted in gyms every week. And what we want to do is use that energy, that's running on treadmills doing nothing, it can do more, basically. So lifting weights that don't need lifting, and instead use that to support local projects. So in our group work, which is the group sessions and community missions, we basically run or walk or cycle to community projects, schools, food banks, and we do things that are really useful. So we, lift up heavy boxes of donations, move them around. We grab shovels and dig up soil, that kind of thing. And then we have older people work, so that's the missions and the social visits up there. So missions are where we run to visit an older person and we do a quick and easy task for them. So something like changing a light bulb, which they might struggle with, or rearranging furniture so a hospital bed can be brought in and then they can come home from hospital. Just simple things like that. And then social visits are brand new to Bromley, thanks to the Innovation Fund, which is really cool. So on the next slide, it explains a bit about them. So the idea is that we want to reduce the barriers for people to get involved. So we used to have a befriending system, which we call Coach Runs, but this new version makes it much easier for people to get involved. So the idea is that people can sign up for a session and then they run to visit an older person, they have a 30-minute chat, and then they run home. And it's really simple and just helps to reduce loneliness and isolation. And of course, it works both ways. So not only does that older person get to have a chat, makes their day a little bit more exciting, but it gives motivation to the runner who's getting there. And yeah, it's a bit of variation for their day. They know that they can't let this person down, and they're meeting someone new. And most of the people who do our stuff tend to be a little bit younger, and often they're new to an area, so chatting with somebody who may have been there for 40, 50 years is really great. Next slide, please. So at the moment we are supporting people who are over 50, who can have a reciprocal conversation, and we need referrers to have an active relationship with those people so that we can pass on any safeguarding or well-being concerns. Next slide, please. And we are currently active in 8 that I can count, 8 areas across the country. Bromley is our newest one. And really, really exciting because obviously it's such a leading part of the country for tackling loneliness. Next slide, please. We've been doing nearly 400 visits by now to 65 older people since last year. Next slide. So here we have some quotes. So, for example, Mrs. J from Windsor said, "I love having the visits. It's good to have somebody to talk to. I've met 3 different people, and they've all been really nice." It's just, simple, effective things like that can help make a difference. There's a few more quotes on the next slide. Mrs. S says, "I don't really trust anyone anymore," which is very sad, but the volunteers, really brighten up my week and are very kind to me. Fantastic. Next slide, please. So after we've done our sessions, we do a quick report. So there's basically no identifiable information in there. It's just a quick report back about what that person has found out, just as a record for us, really. If you would like to get involved and request any older people for us to visit, next slide, please, you can email Mission Control. I did not write this. missioncontrol@goodgym.org, just with your name, number, and professional email address, and we can set up an account, and then you can submit someone to have a visit. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to come chat to me after this, please do. Thanks for listening.
So much. Really thought-provoking. For those of you that are not familiar with the Innovation Fund, it is a council grants fund, essentially, for up to £50,000 to do innovative things, does what it says on the tin, but one of the priorities that we're addressing is loneliness, which is why Mark's organisation was funded to do the social visits. If you're interested in that, do speak to us during the break. One more participation before I let you stretch your legs. 75 of you got your mobile phones out last time, so please don't leave me hanging this time. Helena, one more for us.
Right. just to get us really ready for the break. You will either get to get to your agenda or get your phone out and scan the QR code, opening your camera app. And here it's going to ask you to type in some information. So what times or experiences in a person's life do you think loneliness may occur? You should be able to put in more than one answer, should you feel that you have more than one answer. There are actually no wrong answers on this. So I know we'll go to our next slide. We're going to get a lovely image of a word cloud to form to show all these different times and experiences that may be a trigger point for loneliness. So on here, at any time, absolutely right, loneliness can occur at any time. Times when we least expect it, times when we least expect a person to be going through loneliness. Perhaps we think that they're going through something that's really exciting, like moving to a new home, moving to a new area. Actually, that can be really daunting, and loneliness can be felt within that. Bereavements, moving to a new place, university, retirement, moving home, new parents, recently giving birth, moving, empty nests, having a baby, a disability, filing for divorce, transition, and we as people go through many different transitions within our life. Homelessness, unemployment, illness, death, losing a job, loss of work, puberty, absolutely. Young people who we've already stated who are experiencing loneliness going through so many different times throughout their life. And puberty is obviously one where loneliness can most definitely be felt. Moving to a new area, social media, becoming a new mother, a new parent, perhaps even in the night time. That's really interesting. Perhaps if you are a person who is living alone and coming home to an empty home, that can be very lonely as well. Some fantastic things on here, and as you can see, it's continually growing. The ones which are bold are the ones which people have typed the most. So clearly, there's quite a few of you in the room that believe that bereavement is a time where loneliness can occur, which we know that there are definite links between that. Thank you all so much for participating in this. I'd like to welcome you to go to a break.
Our next session, also packed, also back to back, and also challenging to keep to time, is really looking at carers, vulnerable adults, vulnerable children. I have 5 speakers for you. The first being Joanne from the Orpington Primary Care Network. She's talking about some of the excellent work taking place in that locality. So if I can ask Joanne to join us and for you to give her a warm welcome, please.
Good morning. My name is Joanne Messenger, and I'm the Senior Care Coordinator for the Orpington Primary Care Network. And with me today is one of my clinical directors, Dr. Prima Ravi. And I'm here to talk to you about our Wellbeing Cafe. Why a cafe? In 2021, Dr. Ravi wanted to find a proactive way to reach out to our older population within the PCN, who hadn't been able to come to our GP surgeries during the COVID pandemic, and as a consequence were suffering health inequalities and social inequalities due to their age and mobility. This was first achieved by employing me, and my first role was to ring around the 350 plus over 80s adults, invite them in for a health check and give them a quick chat and a wellbeing check-in. We've reduced this number to less by 60%, and I now head a team of 4 care coordinators working within our practices on continuing to tackle health and social inequalities. This then led Dr. Ravi to consider how we could overcome the social isolation posed by the pandemic. Many of our patients hadn't seen anybody in over a year. Thus the idea of the cafe was born. Working closely with Maddie Smith from Bromley Healthcare, we set out our strategy to achieve this and what we wanted our outcomes to be. Next slide, please. We had a 3-month plan. The hard work had started. We found our premises, the Orpington Methodist Church. We agreed our opening date, then changed it, and then we had our leaflets designed and printed. These were handed out through our GP surgeries. Our numbers have gone from 12 attendees at our first few cafes to over 80 at our last cafe last week. We have talks from our community matrons, our bladder and bowel specialists, our clinical pharmacists, rapid response and IAPs, who each explain what they do and how they can be accessed. cafe has brought together people from various areas of Orpington. Some of our users are caring for their spouses who have dementia. They come along to the cafe together and get support through meeting other carers and our social prescribers. We run a free meditation group, an art class, we have IT help from Bromley Healthcare, and from later this month we'll be running an 8-week class with the long-term conditions team at Bromley Well with Dean. At the cafe, we're able to signpost our users to various clinicians and support available at their surgery and identify where referrals are needed and we can action them. We've also been able to cut down on the amount of GP appointments with some of our cafe users, and I'd like to share this case study with you. This is a PCN cafe case study from April 2023. A female patient in her 80s with a background of anxiety, depression, as well as other chronic diseases. The patient started attending the Orpington Wellbeing Cafe in October 2022. In the year preceding attending the cafe, she had had counselling referrals and had also required other external mental health service support. She had had 11 GP appointments in the year preceding her starting at the cafe. Since October 2022, she's had 3 GP appointments and has had none since December 2022. She gave consent for this case study to be written as she describes herself as a big fan of the cafe. Prior to attending the cafe, she was noticed by the GP to be socially isolated and missing the social events she used to attend before the COVID-19 pandemic. She expressed to the GP that she'd lost her confidence to attend any new social events. Her friends had encouraged her to go to the cafe, and then going on from there, continues to attend regularly. When we approached her about writing this case study, she commented that the cafe makes her feel she can do things for herself again. The GP commented that they'd noted the reduction in GP appointments since attending, and she agreed, but she felt that she could make a GP appointment if she needed to. So from a GP perspective, this has reduced the need for GP appointments, which were mostly from a social aspect. And the GP felt that it encouraged them to suggest the cafe to more of their patients. They're also able to contact the care coordinators, and we can invite the patients to cafes and meet them there. So if they're unsure about attending, as this woman once was, but she hasn't looked back. I also have some feedback from Health Watch Bromley, who've just recently attended. They've asked various questions anonymously to our users, asking, how did you find out about our cafe? We were walking outside one day and we noticed the signboard talking about the Wellbeing Cafe, so we got interested and we tried it. I found this place thanks to my GP practice. After seeing my doctor, I received a call from the social prescribers. After I'd been to the surgery, a lady contacted me, one of my care coordinators, and recommended this place. What do you like about this place? I like the fact that you truly learn so many things. We've learnt more about our healthcare services than we do from our surgery. It's nice because you do not feel trapped at home. We're becoming an isolated population, and I believe cafes like this one are essential for our generation, since they give us a safe place to meet new people away from the danger of the internet. They remember our names and we don't even have to wear name tags. We are very blessed with some of our cafe users. We had recommendations to the memory singers in Bromley. Are you happy with the activities and the services provided? Yes, I am happy. I like the fact there's so many activities going on, and also soon there'll be a coronation party. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Sometimes it's a little noisy, but we sit towards the back and we're always included with everything. We now have 3 cafes, very similar, that are being run within the Bromley area. And the next one is the 5 Elms PCM, which is opening in 2 weeks. With the help of our 6 volunteers, we held a Christmas party, and then last month we ran an additional cafe to celebrate the coronation of King Charles III, which some of our cafe users said was the only activity they attended. Our cafe goes from strength to strength, and with the support of our primary care network, healthcare professionals and our amazing volunteers and my team, of whom I'm extremely proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. A really lovely example of how activity such as that in the community can stop the escalation of need and stop people needing support from health services or adult social care and so on. So really lovely example. Thank you ever so much. Now going to ask you to welcome Sean Rafferty to speak to you about day activities for older people and the Innovation Fund that I mentioned earlier on and our emerging carer strategy. So Sean, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to be here. I'm Sean Rafferty, Assistant Director for Integrated Commissioning, and I work across both the Council and the ICB, so I'm sort of multi-professional working across our health and care services. I'd like to talk to you today about carers, the importance of the Tackling Loneliness strategy for carers, and about the Innovation Fund, about how, together with some funding that we could all use, we can also sort of tackle loneliness, and I'd like to also sort of prioritise carers within all of that. So if you look at sort of carers in Bromley, the census that was taken a couple of years ago identified about 25,000 unpaid carers in Bromley. And what we actually mean by that, these are people who spend a significant part of their lives caring for another person who, due to vulnerabilities, illness or other reasons, sort of do need extra support. We probably think there's probably more closer to 30,000 carers in Bromley rather than 25,000. The reason being that the census took place at the time of the lockdown, and as a result of that, quite a few of those sort of caring arrangements were broken down, so not everybody identified themselves. Also, lots of people don't identify themselves as a carer. They're just a family member helping out, your mum, your dad, your brother, your sister, or you're helping out a neighbour. People don't call themselves carers. They just call themselves sort of friends or family members and things like that. Most carers are aged over 50, usually caring for a parent or a partner. We also have a number of young carers in Bromley as well. Very often a young person who might have a brother or a sister who has a disability, and because of that, the parents need to spend a lot of attention on that family member, and they also have a role to again support their brother and sister as well. And again, these are sort of these young people play a very important role. And together, carers, they just really hold together our community, hold together families. They're really important people. Because the impact of caring on carers is that people have to juggle their lives. They have this caring responsibility, but also they need to sort of work this out. They need to factor this alongside all their other responsibilities about sort of going to work, going to school, learning and being part of the community. And so the impact of sort of caring on carers, there's a number of sort of facets. So firstly, it can create some financial hardship. So in a survey we took last year, about 9% of Bromley carers said that the caring affected their finances in some way or other. It does affect people's health and well-being. Certainly, older carers feel that their sort of health and well-being is impacted about their role as a carer. And again, young carers can often find themselves sort of missing school and missing friendships, really. But a really important part, one of these really big impacts of being a carer can be loneliness, in the sense that you're having to, you are spending time with your family and loved ones that you care for, and that means you're missing out on other opportunities as well. So this is really important, how the tackling loneliness work will overlap with and support carers. So, and as Naheed said, is we're trying to develop a new approach of a new offer to carers across health and care services in Bromley. So this is sort of early work, this is an emerging strategy, but what we're trying to do is sort of bring together sort of a work and sort of relaunch the carers. So the priorities that we're looking to develop and agree over the near future will be we need to do some more work about identifying, recognising, involving carers in the work that we do, develop our services, be able to listen to them more. I think carers will want more clear information, advice and support. They know where to get support if they need it. Not all carers need support, but again, if you need that care support advice, where can you get it from? Who's going to help you? We have a range of activities about supporting people's health and needs who are carers, again. And again, this like, link between this strategy, tackling loneliness strategy and the carers work will be actually making sure that people have a life alongside their caring roles, some sort of time out, some respite, some time for themselves, time to spend time with their friends, but also whilst we're doing that, making sure that the person they care for continues to have their care, whether at home or in other venues. So these are the things that we're looking at. And the key to this is actually making sure this isn't just about the council doing this or the NHS doing this, but we want to involve more agencies in this. And in a moment, sort of David Walker, I think we'll probably talk about a carers charter in a moment. Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to create more opportunities, more activities that can actually help people reduce their loneliness and give people more support. And to do this, we have an innovation fund. It's an innovation fund that's been running in the council and with NHS for quite a long time now. But specifically, we wanted to sort of give priority of this fund for the foreseeable future around looking at tackling loneliness and support and linked to that supporting carers. So we have a pot of money. If you, your friends, your organisations have some ideas about how you might want to sort of create a new opportunity for carers, like sort of a day opportunity, a lunch club, a tea club, or maybe trying to set up an app, or maybe sort of buying some equipment that might help people out, or maybe just something quite as simple as organising some day trips or things like that. We are interested in hearing from you on that, and we actually do have some funds that can help people create that. And that could be sort of quite a big idea. So we want to set up a new service, but we need a bit of an upfront investment to help us do that whilst we're raising other funds. I could be something just very simple saying as well, basically we want to organise a tea club at this community centre and we need some money to buy an urn or something like that. So we'd like to sort of put it out to people here to say that if you want to sort of really sort of get involved yourselves in tackling loneliness, if you've got some new ideas, want to do something different for the community around us, then we do have this fund available for people. If you want to follow that up, if you go when you go to this conference, you go to the little break area, and there's Maya and there's Gay who are there sort of on a stall. They can tell you about the innovation fund. They can sort of maybe give the forms, sort of give you advice as to how you might sort of work with that. And really, I'd like to sort of maybe people sort of maybe leave today thinking about it. If you've got an idea that you've had today, if you've been inspired by what people have said today about what we could do differently, what we could do new to tackle loneliness, then there's a way of helping you to do that. If you do need any money at all to help you achieve that. So hopefully you'll leave this conference thinking about some ideas about tackling loneliness. And if you're worried about how you can go about doing that, if you need some money, then hopefully we can help you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Innovation Fund, do not forget that. It's a very important opportunity. I think it's a really helpful grants process. So our Bromley Well partners were in the market space. I hope you had an opportunity to speak to them then. But I'd also like to now invite David and Lorna to speak to you about adult and young carers.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to do the probably less exciting bit first, and Lorna's going to do the slightly more exciting bit after me. So first off to say is thank you for inviting me this morning. For those of you that don't know Bromley Well or BTSE, I'm the Chief Executive of Bromley Third Sector Enterprise. We're an organisation which delivers Bromley Well, which is a wellbeing service, a universal service in Bromley. If you have the next slide, please. We are a partnership of 4 of the largest local charities, Age UK, Mind, MenCap and Citizens Advice, and we deliver services across the borough. Last year we helped over 12,000 Bromley residents directly with the support that we do, and since we started in 2017 we've helped over 35,000 Bromley residents to help improve their well-being, to help them to keep their independence. What we would like to just basically flag is that carers is a significant part of what we do, but it's by no means all. Through our single point of access helpline, which you can access via either telephone 6 days a week, via email, or through a fairly new direct form via our website, which I was speaking to one of our council colleagues earlier and has used only very recently. you can contact us, people can refer themselves or can be referred by anyone else to provide support to them and see what we can do. So our single point of access, as I said, 12,000 people, we contacted last year. They then signpost onto a whole range of our services. And while I won't go through them all, what you can see from a lot of these, whether it's around our befriending services, our hospital aftercare services, long-term health condition support, as well dementia respite, as well as our carer services, a huge amount of what we do, as a function of what it does, supports people, helps reduce their loneliness and isolation, and it has a significant part to play. What I'm here to talk about today, particularly, is about Bromley Well Carer Service, and I'm very grateful to Sean for already flagging some of the key statistics around carers in this borough. 1 in 12, some estimates 1 in 11 of all people in the London Borough of Bromley have a caring responsibility. That's incredibly significant. It's worth pointing out that of the 25 to 30,000 that Sean pointed out, there are over 7,000 that are caring for someone over 50 hours a week. That's gone up significantly in the last decade. And it's also worth noting that Bromley has the highest number of over 70s in any borough in London. That's only increasing. It's interestingly getting a significant number of younger people as well, which is why that's part of the focus today. What I wanted to do talk a little bit about what Bromley Well Carers does. I want to also say there are other organisations in the room who support carers. We are by no means the only organisation that supports carers in this borough. We are, however, the largest. We are also funded by both the local authority and the NHS to support and provide this. So, we are there. We are a universal service for anyone who needs support. What I should also say is of those 35,000+ people who we've supported over the last 6 years, 37.5% of those, in other words, 3 out of 8, identify as having a disability. And we know that disproportionately people with a disability suffer more from isolation and loneliness. So it's a really significant cohort that we support. Within the carers that we have over 4,000 carers on our records. Last year we directly helped well over 1,000. And that covers 4 key areas of work that we deliver, supported by almost all of our partners. So adult carers, who are primarily elder people, but not always. They're often people in middle age supporting older parents, as well as partner supporting. And exactly as Sean said, many of those people in the first instance wouldn't regard themselves as carers. They think they're just they're doing what they do to support their partner or their family. But we helped close to 500 adult carers last year. We also have mental health carer support. That's extremely significant and work through our colleagues at BLG Mind, and indeed a significant amount with Oxley's and that in providing support for carers for what are often very challenging circumstances. We also work, and this is a definition that many people don't necessarily understand at first, mutual carers. Those are people who are very often older, who are often looking after younger and disabled, often learning disability or autism, but basically children or others. And they obviously, as you can imagine, have a significant challenge with loneliness and isolation, given the nature of the caring that they do. And we have work with hundreds. I think on average we get referred currently about 180 young carers every year to our young carer service. We've worked with well over 600 of those within the London Borough of Bromley. So that's really significant in terms of what we do. The other thing is really, going on to the next slide, is actually what those services mean. So Sean talked a lot about what the challenges are. Our issue is basically how do we support people? How do we support people to understand that they're not alone, that they are supported, that there is help out there, and we can also engage them with others in a similar position so they can share and understand their situation better. So what we also really try and do is tailor the support that we give to the groups that we deal with, and also try and make sure there's more than just one way. One of the real challenges with carers is, respite is a challenge, whichever way you look at it. Going along to meetings and groups is extremely challenging, particularly if we're dealing with someone with dementia. It's worth saying that whilst we do significant work on that, an awful lot happens through the Bromley Dementia Hub, which both Age UK and BLG Mind do significant work on. So to look at, just give some examples there, we have regular telephone check-ins. Very often that works best with mutual carers or older adult carers or caring with dementia. We have a range of WhatsApp groups. They really came into their own during the pandemic, and they're just great in terms of being able to share information. A range of workshops, particularly for mutual carers and others, around IT, connectivity. There's a real issue with carers in a digital deficit, making sure they have access and support through people like Clear Community Web, doing workshops, looking at budgeting, doing cookery classes, things that people can enjoy and support with the person they're caring for, and a range of carers forums as well as social events. And where I say those have been extremely helpful in working with colleagues within the council, including Sean and Denise and others who are here today, in terms of really helping get that lived experience into the upcoming carers strategy and the carers charter that we're hoping will be an outcome of that. What I would say is, we're focused on carers and supporting carers, but we're well aware that a very significant part of this is the impact of loneliness and isolation on that agenda. And to refer, what I want to say as well is, obviously, the other thing we're able to do through Bromley Well is to refer people who are perhaps being supported in one of our pathways with something else as well. So you could have a carer who also has a long-term health condition. You could have a carer who potentially, if they're getting respite, can go to a befriending group. They may well want to use our advice services for advice and guidance on benefits, for support in terms of claiming things like attendance allowance and support behind that. So we were able to provide that wider support, which helps make sure that those people can live the best independent lives that they can and feel that they have genuine support behind them and they're not doing this on their own. Because as we've already heard, the impact on something like unpaid carers, and I emphasise the word unpaid carers, in this borough is significant, both in terms of the well-being, in terms of the economy, and in terms of our health service. So it's really, really important. I've given you the kind of, this is the chapter and verse according to David Walker, so I'm going to stop doing that now, and I'm going to talk about what's much more interesting things that we've been doing, or rather invite Lorna to come up and to tell you what we've been doing with young carers. Because one of the things, as I said before, is we try and make sure we match the support we provide to the appropriate group, and that's where we're really excited to tell you about, on the next slide, about what we've been doing supporting young carers through our Young Carers app. Thanks, Lorna.
Hello, it's so nice to be here today. I've met a lot of you and obviously hopefully going to meet up with you again. I'm Lorna Hammer, I'm the Young Carers Coordinator at Bromley Well Young Carers. I'm here today to talk about our brilliant new app. We did have an app, but it wasn't very user-friendly. So why an app? I work with young people. They like apps, they like social media, they engage, they don't speak to people anymore, they like to be on their phones. So we created a fantastic steering group right from the age of 4, in fact the youngest was 5 I think, right up to 19. They designed it, they told us what they wanted, they couldn't have everything, they wanted it to play games, we were like no, we haven't got enough money for that. But we designed a fantastic app, if you have a little, next slide please, where they can log their feelings and talk about how they're feeling about me. Young carers, as it was touched on over there, can be isolated due to their caring role. They suffer from loneliness because they may not be able to go out with their friends as much because of their caring role. They're caring for someone at home. So this app does a couple of things. The important thing it does is the wellbeing aspect. Log My Feelings is a really quick sliding scale. How do I feel today? Am I happy? Am I sad? Am I angry? Am I frustrated? Really quick, and they can build up a log of how that is. So if I see a young carer in 3 months' time and they've done one of these, I like to say to them every couple of weeks, but it's an active process trying to get them to do it. We can sit down and think, okay, on a Monday, you're always feeling sad. What can we do about that? What strategies can we put in place? How can I help you at school? The About Me section is a bit longer. It's 5 questions that were developed by young carers themselves. They don't like long words. They just wanted, do I go to school every day? How do I feel today? It's like a little mental health diary. It's brilliant. And they're really engaging with that. And they like the fact that they can look at their past results, like I say. So that's fantastic. And the next slide. The way, I don't know if you can see that, yes you can see it up there. So the other aspects of it, it's got an activities calendar where all of the activities are loaded up there. We send out a little reminder saying, hey, have you signed up for this? This empowers young people to look on the app and think, and go to their parent or guardian who are very busy, we're all busy
if they don't see the email, the young carer can go to their parent or guardian at home and say, actually, I'd like to do this. So they are in control of how they engage with us. It's got a brilliant forum. The forum is the best bit when they're with us at an activity. Selfies, anyone do selfies here? Young carers love a selfie. So we're at a forum, we do lots of fun things, and in that they can upload a selfie, talk about it. Like in the last forum we had about 30 young carers at Station Road at Bromley Bank up there, and they were taking selfies and writing down, I'm having the best day ever, this is great, I'm making new friends. Lovely. So it's a really nice place for them to feel connected, and they can ask questions on it. I've got a problem with my brother keeps having meltdowns. Anyone know how I can support? So they can chat to each other. It's not live, it's monitored, but they can ask questions and really, really be in touch with other young carers who are in exactly the same position as them. So it's a fantastic tool. What else is there? Yeah, how can we help you? They can contact myself and my colleague Hannah, the young carer support worker. It's been a brilliant tool. The other thing we have, that's the last slide there, but 16 plus, they're a difficult age to engage with, 16 to 19. We've got a brilliant WhatsApp chat group. And again, young people, they just want a WhatsApp. I put in all the time different things about there's this opportunity, there's that opportunity, come here, go there, and they love that. So that's a really another way that we can tackle the loneliness that they may feel. And they're all in it, and they can all talk to each other as well, and it's quite fun. Sometimes Hannah and I joke that we might put a WhatsApp in and it just gets completely aired. No one responds at all. So me and Hannah are having a conversation. Oh, that's a good idea, Lorna. Oh, yeah, that's great, Hannah. No one else is replying, but sometimes they do, which is fantastic. And that's it. We do run activities, workshops. We're a great service. I have spoken to a lot of you today, and I'm already going to come to a couple of your venues to speak about young carers. There's a lot of hidden young carers, and we need to find them. In the latest census, 248 young carers with schools are declared, which is quite frankly astonishing, because there are far more young carers in the community than that. We need to find them, and I am prepared to come and speak to any of you guys, churches, spoke to a lady there earlier, anyone, to try and find those hidden young carers. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, David and Lorna. I'm running sort of 10 minutes behind, but I hope that you do not mind the indulgence. These are such important subjects to be talking about, and carers are something very close to my own heart, so I thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm going to invite Helena back to speak to us a little bit more about what we're doing with young people.
Thank you, Nahid. So over the last 9 months within my role, an area that I've been focusing on, something that I'm really, really passionate about, is helping to support groups within the community who is experiencing loneliness, which are our youngest people within the borough. So we've done some really fantastic things, which I'm going to talk to you about the pictures on this screen, around intergenerational projects with our schools, our Bromley Children's Project, and My Time Active's Arts Train school programme as well. And I've had a fantastic opportunity of working with a school network at London Borough of Bromley at the Mental Health and Wellbeing Network in Leeds event. But first of all, I'm going to talk about the pictures that you can see here on the screen. So one of the first projects that I did with schools was actually at Christmas time. It was our Christmas card scheme. I asked the schools, after meeting them at a Mental Health and Wellbeing Leeds networking event, who would like to make some Christmas cards to perhaps deliver them within the community. Well, I was completely overwhelmed. We had 10 schools take part, all 6 children and family centres, and 2 My Time Active after-school clubs as well. I asked for 600 cards. I got over 900. These were delivered by myself across the borough to 6 care homes, 6 extra care home schemes, 4 domiciliary care agencies. And there were so many that were left over from those that had requested how many that they liked, that we gave over 200 to the PRU, the Princess Royal University Hospital in Farnborough, St Christopher's Hospice in Sydenham, and others to Children in Looked After. This was so popular that the schools had requested that they'd like to do more, which was fantastic. News to my ears, as well as My Time Active and Bromley Children's Project saying that they would absolutely love to continue to do something like this. And therefore, we've got our Festival of Card Schemes. This is a fantastic project which is currently ongoing, which is engaging around the culture of our community and bringing people together from all different cultural and religious backgrounds to engage in conversation where loneliness can be felt. So currently the 4 pictures in the middle are our beautiful cards that we have received for Palm Sunday, which went to our Transform Bromley Borough food banks that was distributed the weekend before, and we received 378 cards, which is just fantastic. And recently we had Eid. I'm in conversations with the Alan Mem Centre in Bromley, and the schools and the Bromley Children's Project made 147 cards. These were delivered at Eid in the park. We had some fantastic comments. One person said, "Oh, how thoughtful and kind." And someone else said, "That's a really lovely thing to do. It's made my day." How wonderful. Isn't it incredible? A card, something so small, made by someone who may be very young, can have such an incredible impact. So our festival card schemes, we know that Christmas time is usually the time, a calendar time in our year where loneliness can be felt, but that can also happen within various different religious festivals as well. So we're also working alongside our Jewish community and also our Hinduist community as well, to deliver them cards around the festivals that they have requested as well. So watch this space for more beautiful cards. So going back to the previous slide, we also have an intergenerational pen pal scheme, which is currently ongoing. So various schools wrote to me and said that they'd like to do something more than just the cards. They'd like to interact with people and connect with older people who may be experiencing loneliness and social isolation, if they perhaps have a very small network or perhaps do not have anyone that they see often. We've connected 5 schools with various different people from our creative support and also Home Instead, one of our domiciliary care agencies. And so far, we've had some fantastic feedback. I got a call from one of our domiciliary care agencies that said we've received our first letter. And she said that the gentleman that received it is absolutely ecstatic and it's completely made his day. Again, something so small which has such big impact. And it's brilliant that we are connecting our school children, some of the youngest, to our very oldest in the community, to share stories and insight and learn from each other. This is a fantastic project which is helping children to increase their written skills, but also to help older people to gain the confidence to perhaps call Bromley Well, or look at going into a community group or asking for help and assistance should they feel that they need to. This project is ongoing and it will come to the end towards October, where we will be celebrating Silver Sunday together by bringing in everybody who's been part of that project, parents, guardians, teachers, those that are recipients that we're writing to, their carers and their organisations as well, to have a celebration to end that project altogether. And finally, the picture that you can see with all the children jumping up in the air with their books on the previous slide, that is World Book Night. So after our Tackling Loneliness Action Group came together, somebody had mentioned about World Book Night, and I thought I'll Google this and see what it's about. And it's from an organisation called the Reading Agency. So once a year is World Book Night, where books can be ordered or an application can be put in to see if we might get some. So I thought I took a chance and I did. And to my surprise, which was fantastic, we received 80 books. And so with these children's books that we received, which is around inspiring stories around strength, we decided that we were going to donate them to various different groups. So out of these 80 groups, 30 of them went to our Children Looked After and are currently in our house for any child to read. 20 of them went to our young carers at Bromley Well, and this is some of our young carers which look ecstatic with their book that they've just received. 20 went to children who were receiving specialist services within the autism team at Bromley Well. And also 10 went to our Bromley Youth Justice System. Books have the power of bringing us together. And when we do feel alone, sometimes it's a great place to escape, but actually to escape with friends and colleagues in book clubs and those that may be taking part in book nights. These are really powerful tools which do not cost a lot of money. None of this project has cost anything, but it's incredibly impactful and it's a piece of work that I'm really, really happy with, and I'm really excited to see where it can go in my next 4 years. On to my next slide. I want to talk a little bit about the Mental Health and Wellbeing School Leads Network. So I currently have a regular termly slot there, which is fantastic. The Tackling Loneliness is an initiative which is important for schools and teaching staff to talk about. We're enabling schools to raise awareness of loneliness through projects and delivering school assemblies. I've currently delivered school assemblies to key stages 2 to 5 at various schools, including Kemnall Technology College, Crofton Junior School, St James's RC Primary School, and also Bishop Justice. I've now visited some of these schools several times, speaking to various different year groups to start the conversation around loneliness and how we can support young people to hold a conversation, how to ask for help, and what peer support information might be available to them. Many of these schools work with us during Children's Mental Health Week and help promote a leaflet which we specially created for young people within the borough to know about national and local peer support groups which they might be able to go to and use. Collaborated with other organisations such as Bromley Y, our social workers, guardianship, social prescribers and Bromley MenCap, who have all been on the Tackling Loneliness workshop. And from being on this workshop, some of these organisations have gone to not just talk about loneliness, but actually go on to have impactful and meaningful work within the groups that they're working with. I also regularly forward information to our Mental Health and Wellbeing Leads newsletter, which goes out every month. Within their bulletin, I've included information around our 3 big lunches, which you might have seen on my table. These are community events for our residents to attend. These have gone to schools. I've also sent information around educational seminars, specific loneliness resources, and also academic research, which our schools can take part in. This is a fantastic place to talk about loneliness with young people. It's getting our teachers on board and also getting them involved in how we can help not just support young people, but also to support carers and guardians as well. I can't wait to see what is going to happen in the next academic year and what we'll be doing to help, again, further the conversation around loneliness within schools. Thank you so much for having me again.
I hope you're picking up the thread of the speakers that we've pulled together. The idea being that small and big things matter. Collectively, all of these initiatives are making our residents and our young people less lonely. And that was the objective that Councillor Cuthbert and I spoke about in 2019. It wasn't about a big initiative from the council. It was about how do we galvanise the community? How do we get everybody engaged in that conversation and everybody contributing to mitigating loneliness? So I promised you 9 local speakers. My 9th is the Director of HR here at the council, talking to you about how the council is offering opportunities to staff to volunteer. So Charles, can I ask you to the podium?
Very much. I couldn't recognize you when I came here because without your glasses and because we now work agilely as part of mental health. It's been a long time I've seen you face to face. So just before I do the protocol, the risk of having someone like me here is I'm a bit of a maverick. But I've only been given 10 minutes, so 10 minutes is probably not sufficient for me to do my show. Because normally I will have criticized you. I wanted to go out, and you'll be, because my first name is Charles, you'll be shouting, Charlie, Charlie, and rocking chairs about. But here we are. But my late mother is looking at me and says, Charles, behave yourself. One of the things she told me was always respect people who represent the monarchy. So she'll be very upset that I'm not paying respect to Mr. Mayor. So good afternoon, sir, and good afternoon, cabinet members who are here. Good afternoon, senior colleagues, other colleagues, and all the colleagues who are here. I welcome you to LBB. I deliberately choose LBB because I'm going to test you later what LBB stands for. It's absolutely quite important. And every time I stand in this august chamber, I feel a sense of pride. Who knows, one day I might be the mayor of Bromley, the councillor of Bromley. Don't laugh, it is possible. So I might be the first black mayor of Bromley Council, and I'll be excited. But the chance of that happening is very, very slim because I'll probably have to buy this 5 million, 2 million property in Bromley. And currently I live in Luton, so you can imagine it's a far cry from Luton to get into Bromley. And on that note, so if I welcome you here, one of the things we do, which is quite important to mental health and volunteering, which I've been asked to speak about, is the tradition of our boss, Ade Adetosoye. Every time he comes to every gathering, every conversation, he starts by saying, thank you. So thank you very much for sparing your afternoon, a very lovely day to be with us. And I'll probably end up with thank you. That's a tradition. It's absolutely important to mental health. The two words thank you shouldn't be that difficult. I'm not quite sure whether I'm qualified to speak in a professional or occupational capacity, but what I do know on a personal basis, this is a subject which is very close to my heart, and I'll share with you in terms of volunteering. So I told you I live in Luton. I call it Lee Grave. Lee Grave is a bit posher than Luton. So we all like to embellish where we live at times, and so I say I live in Lee Grave, which is the outskirts of Luton. I belong personally to a group called Neighbours Together. Neighbours Together has been going for more than 15 years. And what we do to support Luton Borough Council is in our area in Luton, we bring people, irrespective of their protected characteristics, irrespective of their gender, but primarily elderly people and older people, to come out once a year to experience labourliness and be together and journey together. It's absolutely important. And it's quite key in terms of the subject of today, which is around loneliness. The other part of my personal experience, which in preparing for this, and I said, it's kind of coincidental but very sad. A few days ago, I received a phone call from a friend and a colleague. We went to school together, an Army Air Force officer in Nigeria. He called me and he said, my wife has just taken her life. She hung herself because she just couldn't take it anymore. So when it comes to mental health, we take it seriously. It could be you, it could be me. It could be you, do the advert of National Lottery. It could be you. Any of us can experience mental health. None of us is immune to it. And loneliness is not nice. We want to be together. No one should be lonely, in my view. In the context of what I do occupationally for Bromley Council, as your Director of HR, Public Affairs and Customer Services, none of our staff should feel lonely. And it's quite important because kindness is at the heart of what we're talking about. Absolute kindness. And kindness is giving hope to someone who feels lonely. Can you do it? I don't know. We all sit here because you are the converts. But I challenge you, when was the next time you check on your neighbor to see if they're okay? And the same applies to me. I live in a close with 24 houses. The number of people I can identify in that close, if I bump into them on the street, are probably less than 3 families. That's a shame. 24 houses. The rest, we could bump into each other and probably have a row with each other. I wouldn't have a clue that we live in the same close. That can't be right. So the point I'm trying to make is that reach out to your next door neighbor and your next door neighbor and your next door. And that's the program we're trying to do in Luton, which is called Neighbours Together. And why mental health is important? It's important, and I'll come back to our staff in a moment. It is important because, as I understand it, 1 in 4, I believe the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Center in America, said 50% of us will experience mental health in our time. And I mean serious mental health rather at a lower level, which every one of us will experience on a day-to-day basis. And showing that kindness, empathy is important. In the context of Bromley Council, I stand before you if you work for Bromley Council, or if you've got relatives who work for Bromley Council, or we're looking for qualified social workers, and Councillor Diana Smith will ask me to put a plug in for that. And so if you know, tell them to come and work for LBB. And if you think LBB stands for London Borough of Bromley, you are in the wrong venue. This stands for London Best Borough. We are London Best Borough for a reason. For a reason, because we create a dream organization in a dream organization where everyone, irrespective of their difference, whether difference to do with race or gender or mental health, has a place and will be valued. We encourage people, chin up, chest out, and be proud that you are different. Absolutely. And the program I'm going to use a framework to bring home our commitment to mental health and supporting our staff. And I call it care. Isn't that appropriate in the context of loneliness and mental health care? Where the C stands for compassion, not sympathy. Empathy, compassion, understanding. If I am my boss, if I as your director of HR think I can be having an issue at home that is stressing me out, and I'll come to the office on a Monday morning and be firing all cylinder, then Ade has lost it completely. I've lost it completely. So we must be able to show compassion. How do we do that? Basic technique. People say to me, Charles, why is it all the time we bump into you, I ask them, are you okay? It gets me into trouble at times. Not trouble, it means that somebody will open up to me on issues. But it's absolutely important because stress and mental illness, at times, you don't know unless you ask. You don't know what I'm experiencing, what I'm going through, unless you ask. Do you care to ask that question? Are you okay? It's up to that person if they want to open up. But if you create an environment that people feel able, they will do. And I hope in Bromley Council, we do. We do because we say to our staff, there is always one person you can talk to. There might be several, but there has to be one person. Your colleague, your manager, your trade union rep, your staff rep, the chief executive who runs a one-to-one, or anyone in the organization. Just talk to someone because that might be the beginning of finding a solution to our issue. And it's not rocket science. You don't have to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist to do that. I generally come across as a very bubbly, energetic person. I come in on a Monday morning, and Ade sees my demeanor has changed. And he couldn't even be bothered to ask me, are you all right? So that's quite important to us. So care, which C stands for compassion, action. What actions are we putting in place to ensure our staff? We have a whole range of programs, which time doesn't permit me to go into, but we have what is called the OK campaign. We say to staff, it's okay to say something to you, it's okay to do what you want to do. We offer employee assistance program to all our staff. And it doesn't just apply to staff, it applies to friends and families of staff. And it's confidential 24/7 on the go. You can access it at home, on the bus, on the train, anywhere. And you don't have to ask for your manager's permission. You've got a code, all they will ask you is the code, and you work for LBB, and they will give you that support. Additionally, we do provide occupational health support to staff, if required. We also provide what we call a telephone lottery. We randomly match people together so that they can talk to each other. Councillor Arthur, who was the previous cabinet member for resources, took part in it, and he found it quite interesting. I was randomly matched to a colleague I've never met before. It was amazing how we then developed professional relationship out of that going forward. R is the reassurance. The reassurance that no one will embarrass anyone from experiencing mental health. Because if you do, my mother said to me, when you point an accusing finger at someone, remember at least 3 are pointing at you. Who is to say you are not experiencing? Who are you to judge someone because of their mental health? We take people on their ability, not because of their disability or ill health. It's absolutely important. And the E of the care is example. We've got loads of examples of supporting colleagues in this organization. We do have employees who have mental disability, neurodiversity. We support in the organization. And some of them, I don't want to embarrass them, we've supported them in so much they hold responsible positions in the organization, which is why I said that it is about someone's ability, not about their disability. That is the case. So I just genuinely believe that London-based borough, and it's for a reason, and because we believe our staff are our greatest assets. It might sound like a cliche, but that's the reality. Nothing gets done in local authority without people. Yes, you can have the technology, you can have the money. We rely on you and I, the people in the organization, over 2,000 of us, to deliver. And therefore, staff are like beauties. You look after them physically, you look after them mentally. If you don't, because they are like beauty, someone somewhere will be telling them, I love you, I love you. You don't care. You know what happens? They will leave. Just because, the same way if I don't say I love you to my partner regularly, she will leave me for my neighbor. If we don't look after our special jewel in Bromley Council, they will go to our noisy neighbor. I hope nobody from Bexley here. Our noisy neighbors are Bexley and Croydon. Thank you very much.
For any volunteer scheme, we can do more than that. We can do 2 days or minimum of 2 days. And it's very, very helpful because it helps people to cope with their mental health and also to give something back in the community, which is why we do it for. Thank you.
I'm following the script anyway, everybody. Thank you, Charles. It's really thank you, Charles. So the first digital participation had 75 participants. The second I challenged you to do me one better. You did, I kid you not. 76 people got their phones out. It was you, Councillor. It was indeed. Thank you for that. Can I ask you to rumble through your purses again and for the final participation before we bring you the final speaker as well?
As it says on here, you're going to have 3 questions that you are now going to be able to answer. So the first one's quite personal. Have you ever been lonely? Have you ever experienced loneliness? Yes or no? You can only choose one answer. The second one, would you feel confident speaking to somebody about loneliness? And finally, would you know where to signpost someone if they're experiencing loneliness? Send in your questions, and here we go. So, have you ever been lonely? Yes. So far at the moment, 85% of the room have experienced some kind of loneliness. That really shows in terms of the various different ages that we have here, people from various different backgrounds, people at all different stages of their life, that loneliness does not discriminate. Loneliness can affect us all. Thank you so much. Let's go to the next question. So, would you feel confident speaking to someone about loneliness? And that's fantastic, but so many of you feel that you might be able to start a conversation, hold a conversation, or allow someone to come and speak to you about loneliness. That's brilliant. If perhaps you're not sure or you're not, then come onto our Tackling Loneliness workshop. We can help give you a bit more information around what loneliness is, who might be affected, what the impacts of that loneliness is, and how to support them through a conversation, and the various different resources, some of which are here, some of which aren't, within Bromley. Next slide, please. And last of all, would you know where to signpost someone to? There are so many different people here today in the marketplace. Help to support you, residents that you might work with, yourself, your colleagues from your organisation. It's brilliant that so many people know where they might be able to signpost someone to. But if you don't, please, I urge you to pick up as many leaflets as possible from the marketplace to share with your organisations, residents, colleagues, whoever it might be, post on social media, to really get us start talking around loneliness and helping to support those in our community which need that support most and more than ever. I am here to ask any questions throughout the day. Again, the Tackling Loneliness workshop, a free 1.5-hour workshop, really helpful in signposting you to where you might be able to get some support for yourself, your family, and others that you're working with. Thank you so much for participating in our interactive tools today.
So do you remember, Councillor Cuthbert, that colleagues said, we don't know how to identify loneliness, we don't feel confident to speak about loneliness, and then when we do speak to someone, we don't know where to signpost them. Those were the 3 things that we heard during our workshops in 2021. I feel really reassured by that. There's always more work to be done, but that feels like we're going in the right direction. So I thank you for everybody's participation. Our last speaker, I promised you 9 local people and 1 national. Our last speaker, I'm really delighted to be speaking to us today. His name is Robin Hewitt. He's the Chief Executive of the Campaign to End Loneliness. And I wanted Robin really to speak to us a little bit about the national agenda, because although I'm really happy to be boasting about what Bromley's doing, we're also always really keen to learn from others. So please welcome Robin Hewitt.
Thank you for that very kind introduction. It's great to be in Bromley. It's where my mum grew up. It's where my grandma lived all her life, just about 500 yards away on Palace View. And so it's great to be here. And it's also great to hear about the fantastic work that is happening in Bromley, and to kind of pick up some of that as we kind of go through. So thank you to Naheen for the introduction, and also I just want to say thank you to Helena for her great work and spearheading the strategy, and also what you in the audience may not know about is the really helpful work she does sharing that activity with others who are looking to tackle loneliness in their local authorities, in their context. She's been a great advocate for Bromley right around the country. So thank you, Helena. And I also want to say thank you for the councillors for coming. I'm extremely impressed by your ability to wear a suit and chains in this context, where I'm kind of sweltering just in just a shirt. But yes, so if we move to my next slide, I just want to briefly introduce us as an organisation. So we were founded about a decade ago because lots of people cared about this issue and were interested in it, but there was no place for them to connect. And so what we are about is about building the evidence base about loneliness, which is both the kind of the very kind of academic side of it, but also a lot of what you do about loneliness is very much about the kind of how do you practically make things happen. And so we're a place where those different groups can come together to build a much better evidence base, and the improvement in our understanding of loneliness has been really, really rapid in the last decade or so. We also try to build the community of organisations who care about this issue and work together. And finally, we're here to make the case for action on loneliness, because we think that this is one of the most serious issues facing our country, but also when we get this right, we make a massive difference to people's lives as individuals, to people's lives as communities. And also, I'm particularly reminded of this on the 7th anniversary of the murder of Joe Cox, that when we come together better, we are much better at fighting different types of extremism, and we can make our collective political decisions much, much better together when we kind of come together. And I think that one of the reasons why I think there has been so much kind of political energy around this issue is around trying to create that better way of talking to each other, a better way of relating to each other, so that we can have a much better political conversation. So if we move to my next slide, I just want to talk briefly about what we're covering, to try to give a sense, I think, of what the impacts of loneliness, what causes it, and we've got some particular data from London, but also the kind of wider evidence base. And I think that the thing which I'm always most keen to talk to people about when it comes to loneliness is to help us think about what loneliness feels like. So I think that makes the case for action, but also helps us understand what to do about loneliness. And finally, and it's obviously something which you will know well, given the fantastic strategy and implementation of your work in loneliness and Bromley, about the value of a strategic approach, which I'll try and do pretty quickly so that we're not holding up from lunch. So thank you. This is just quickly what we're talking about here, but you'll probably know that by now, that loneliness is subjective. Some people need lots of social contact, some people need very little. Sometimes we're lonely because of a lack of relationships of one type or another. Sometimes we're lonely because of bad relationships. So we move to the next slide. And I think that we have this kind of points about how loneliness, particularly when it's aligned with other parts of social disconnection, like social isolation and living alone, is absolutely up there as a major health risk factor, something that's been recognised by the World Health Organization, the US Surgeon General, and the UK government in its own strategy. There are a number of ways in which that happens. Some of it is at the kind of the stress response. Some of it is because the kind of psychology, the feelings of loneliness make it hard for us to do things like sleep well. But probably the most important one is that when we are connected, we can do the difficult and sometimes slightly boring things we need to do to look after our health. But we get the motivation to do that from our relationships. We're much more, for example, I used to work in diabetes, and we tried lots of ways of trying to get people to get checked out for type 2 diabetes. And we found that if we said, do this because it's good for you, people didn't really care. We found that if you said, do this because you'll be better able to support the people you care for, everyone went. It's kind of very striking. We're motivated by the people around us. So we'll move to our next slide. But I think that the other thing I would add about this is that we often understand things by its impact on our physical health, but I think that just tells you how deeply loneliness can cut. So just in terms of why people are lonely, sometimes it's to do with things which are individual to us, so our particular kind of psychological makeup. It may be things which have particularly happened to us in our lives, and kind of transitions and change can be a really big factor. But also our kind of social context, so where we live and how we live, and very particularly if we feel safe and welcome. So I think what Charles was talking about just now, about trying to create a borough and a workforce that really accepts its difference and is open to talking to people, that type of kind of, those types of norms and valuing people really make a difference. On my next slide just helps to try to, it might be a little bit small, but it tries to show how, as we go through life, there's lots of things that might cause us to be lonely. Young people can be lonely, middle-aged people like me can be lonely, and people in later life can be lonely as well. And there are different kinds of kind of risk factors. There are a lot, but the kind of key thing really is about kind of things that change our social relationships can cause us to be lonely, particularly if they're particularly stressful or worrying, such as being very worried about money, being bullied, and I think the single most important one is being bereaved, and I think we've heard a bit about action on that today. For just a very obvious reason, if loneliness is not having the social relationships you want, when we're bereaved, it leaves a very deep hole. So on my next slide, we talk about some of the more specific London findings. I think I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'm very happy for these slides to be distributed. I think the one that I would pick out, a couple that I would pick out particularly, I think I'm always very struck by the extent to which being LGBT makes people much more likely to be lonely, despite the great progress that we have made as a society. Similarly for disability, that this is something, lots of loneliness is caused by change, but also with disability it doesn't change, and sometimes it gets worse, and people who are disabled are much more likely to be lonely. And with ethnicity, it's a kind of complicated picture, but certainly it's higher in some groups, but with a particular finding that our first year in London can be a really lonely year because of the amount of change that's involved. It can feel like a very overwhelming place. And so helping to create the welcoming types of spaces that you're trying to do in Bromley absolutely speaks to that. And I think probably many of us who might have moved to London at one point or other in our lives can probably, I think, relate to that being a big shift. So if we move on to my next slide, similarly, we can catch up with these, but I think these might get in the way of lunch if I go through all of them in too much detail. So if we move to the next slide, so what I most want to talk about here was about the psychology of loneliness and how loneliness makes us feel. So this isn't just some random words we've brought up. These are from the academic evidence base about how people talk about feeling lonely. And you can see these are very powerful emotions. And the key thing about them and if we move to my next slide, this brings us out more, they affect how we understand our social situations. So, for example, at an event like this, if we're not feeling lonely, you're going to go along, you're going to meet people, it will be nice, you go home and you kind of get on with your day. If we are feeling lonely, the prospect of coming into a group of people you don't know can feel really overwhelming. When we're here, we're likely to be much more alive to things not going quite right. We might feel much more self-conscious, or if someone, say, wanders off to get a drink, we might think, was that me? Or how could they be so mean? These types of things can really bubble up in people's minds, and then afterwards they may be kind of dwelling and churning on these thoughts as well. And so, so my next slide brings this out. So you can have this kind of downward spiral where, because social interactions become so much less pleasurable and so much more stressful, people withdraw from them. And sometimes people might do that physically and become kind of more, particularly if they're older, they might be able to become quite reclusive. But if we're younger and still have to carry on going out to work and so on, we can just withdraw emotionally from those around us. And there's very interesting findings about how loneliness in the workplace can have real impacts on productivity because of that kind of withdrawal and stress. So my next slide, I think I want to get into something which just brings that out. So this is someone who absolutely wants to engage, but there's a kind of a catch-22 happening for this person. And it just stops them. And it really kind of, I think it strikes out, I think it goes to the core of why it's important that we have these services, because we can't just presume that if someone's lonely, they'll sort themselves out, because actually that's what they're feeling like. And either if we can do it in our personal lives or in the more organised way that we're seeking to do here, we can really make a very big difference to people and help them to really kind of get back into the rhythm of social life. I'm not going to go through, my next slide brings out some of the ways in which we think we can do this. And we have a kind of an overview on my next slide, which I often like to dance around and point at bits, but I don't think I can quite do that here. But you can see this is from the point of view of someone who's lonely, the kinds of services they need. And I think you can very much see some of those reflected in the conversations that we've been having here, whether it's about the cafe and the PCN, which is about finding and reaching people, whether it's about, I think I'm very struck by the work with young carers and the way in which they're being supported through technology to reach each other and provide that peer support and the support from the more organised services as well. And it's brilliant to see the work of the Innovation Fund in trying to find better ways of supporting carers, which is a big risk factor for loneliness. Similarly, you can see on here, there's a kind of, we think that there's this kind of gateway infrastructure. Lovely bit of jargon there, sorry about that. But obviously, Bromley strategy is about the importance of the social infrastructure for bringing people together, which is absolutely what we mean by that. Those different places for people to connect, different places for groups to be able to put on activities. And similarly, you can see how digital, through the single point of access, can help people to find what they're looking for. Which is not to say there are no issues in relation to social media. It can absolutely drive loneliness, particularly through bullying and social comparison. And finally, obviously in London, we're lucky to have pretty good transport, but also there's more we need to do to make sure that places feel walkable and that they're accessible to everyone. If you've got, and making sure that everything we're doing to improve the accessibility of our transport system to a really wide range of people isn't just making their lives a bit more convenient, a bit less annoying, it's helping people to be more connected in ways that will, I think, really, really matter to them. And finally, there's the types of kind of groups and befriending that are absolutely one of the kind of core parts of the strategy that you've put together. So I think that we can see here that there's a fantastic amount that Bromley is doing right. And I think the reason why we think it's important, not just that these things exist, but the reason why it's so important to have a strategic approach is they work best, not when just when they exist, but when they know about each other and they're able to connect. Because fundamentally, there isn't one way of tackling loneliness. It's about pushing together this kind of brilliant patchwork quilt that gives us the social connections we need to live really good lives. And so thank you ever so much for everything that you're doing today, and I'm very delighted to be invited here. So thank you all.
Thank you, Robin, and we've been delighted to have you here, so thank you on behalf of the Borough. So, I hope through this morning you've picked up some ideas, and that's stirred a bit of an appetite to do more. During the break, the Borough Commander for the Fire Service spoke to me. He was here this morning. He said my fire officers and volunteers quite often meet members of the community that may well be lonely, and actually I'm going to send them on your training course. Could you do something bespoke for us, because we can reach out to vulnerable members of the community? And I put his hand off for it. Of course I did. So I hope that you've all been sitting there thinking about different ways of working with the community as well to tackle loneliness. We will be circulating the slides to all delegates that have attended today, but the final word today will not be mine. It will be from the gentleman who actually initiated the discussion in 2019. The leader of Bromley Council started the conversation in 2019. He feels very passionately about the subject. I'm very grateful for his champion and for ensuring that we are all collectively doing something about this. So could you give a warm welcome for the closing remarks to the leader of Bromley Council, Councillor Colin Smith.
Well, thank you all very much indeed for coming along. For those of you that were here in 2019, it's quite remarkable that 4 years have passed so quickly. Real blink of an eye stuff. We've had some tough times, we've had some interesting times, but we've come through it together, and together is key to this. This is a partnership across the borough, across organisations, across all social classes of all descriptions. Politics are irrelevant. What drives everybody in this room is to do things better and help people. And that to me makes me certainly very, very proud to be the leader of this fine borough. And I'm sure I speak for all the other councillors in the room when I would say I imagine they feel exactly the same too. So above all else, thank you very much indeed for coming along today. I truly hope you've got something positive out of this. Naheed set the objectives earlier in the morning. I hope that what you've heard today sates those thoughts, sates your needs. And if not, obviously, Naheed or indeed Helena will be absolutely delighted, I know, to receive emails, telephone calls after the event. Just looking back, I think, ironically, the problem has got bigger. Who would have thought in summer 2019 what was just around the corner knocked us all sideways, didn't it? Dreadful, the worst experience, I think, in our entire lifetimes. Hopefully it stays that way now as well. We don't need anything like that again. But the mental health issues in particular that COVID has inflicted on top of everything else is going to be a big story, I think, in years going forward. And that is another effort, another reason we need to really double down on this agenda and make it work. Like many people here, I suspect, I didn't really think much about loneliness, didn't know much about it. Never really crossed my mind until an event happened in my family life. And it's like so many things and so many services, you don't really think about stuff too much until it impacts you. And it was a hard lesson, but that penny drops moment, and I hope and I believe that that is exactly where everyone in this room is. It is the most awful thing being lonely, no matter what age you are, what job you're doing. I get lonely at times, you know. Being leader of the council is not always fun. but seriously, it can affect anybody, work colleagues, members of your family, your next door neighbour. So let's all please just go that little step extra. Let's care a little bit more, perhaps be a little bit kinder on occasions where we're short of time, short on temper. Let's help people and let's make Bromley a place we
truly strive to try and ensure that no single person is left behind and feels lonely. It's a very big ask, but if we all stick at it and work together, I'm sure we can get a very long way down that road. So thank you for coming. Have a great afternoon and a safe journey home as well. Thank you.